The screen fades in with the sound of wind howling through the misty highlands. A deep, steady heartbeat rises under the sound of a distant storm. A single whisper breaks through the silence. The past never stays buried, and neither does love. The music swells, strings and drums weaving together with urgency. Quick flashes of dark clouds rolling over ancient stone castles, horses galloping across a field, and shadows moving through the forest set the stage. The screen cuts to black, and then a voice, calm but full of warning, says, "Fate is calling." The camera pushes through thick fog. The land of Scotland stretching wide and endless. Hills roll against a horizon lined with storm clouds. The sound of thunder echoing in the distance. A castle ruin appears, standing like a ghost from another time. The music grows steady, pulling the audience deeper into the mystery. We see the silhouettes of Henry and Julia. They ride side by side on horseback, their faces shadowed by the fading sun. They move with purpose, every step taking them closer to danger. The voiceover begins, slow and deliberate. Two souls bound by fate, searching for answers. The camera cuts to Henry holding an old map, the edges torn and weathered. His hand trembles, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing that every path he takes might lead him closer to, or further from, Claire. Julia rides ahead, her eyes sharp, scanning the land as though danger hides in every corner of the mist. The music shifts, lower now, a tense rhythm underneath. Henry lowers his voice to Julia. "She's out here. I can feel it." Julia turns, her eyes meeting his. She says nothing, but the look in her face carries both fear and hope. Suddenly, the sound of branches snapping. The horses rear, uneasy. A dark figure moves in the distance, just enough to unsettle. Henry grips the hilt of his sword, and Julia raises a lantern, its glow breaking through the fog for a moment. The light flickers and the figure vanishes. The voiceover returns. "In a land where the past still breathes, danger is never far." The camera tilts to the trees, where shadows seem alive, stretching across the ground. The screen fades quickly to a shot of Henry's hand pressing against the earth. His fingers close around a piece of torn fabric, faded, but still strong. He lifts it slowly and the music swells. Julia leans forward, whispering, "Claire." The scene cuts to black, leaving only the pounding of drums. The tension is set. The search has begun. The screen bursts back to life with the sound of heavy rain slamming against the earth. Lightning cuts across the sky, revealing Henry and Julia now on foot, their horses tied back as they move through a dense forest. The glow of Julia's lantern sways with every step, throwing long, twisted shadows that stretch over the trees like reaching hands. The voiceover, steady and dark, returns. Every answer comes with a price, and every path hides a trap. Henry kneels down once again, this time brushing aside wet leaves to uncover something buried in the mud. It is small, metallic, and glimmers even in the dim light. A medical tool, unmistakably Claire's. His breath catches, and the camera closes in on his face, showing both hope and fear tangled together. Julia steps closer, her voice sharp. If she left this behind, it wasn't by choice. The thunder rolls again, as though echoing her words. The music quickens, a haunting rhythm of drums. Quick cuts show a dark figure slipping silently between the trees, a torch suddenly extinguishing in the wind. Julia tightening her grip on the lantern, her hand trembling. Henry whispers under his breath, "Someone's watching us." The sound of a bowstring being drawn pierces the silence. Julia's eyes widen, and she pulls Henry down just as an arrow whistles past, embedding itself in the trunk of a tree. The lantern falls, shattering against the ground, its flames scattering into sparks. For a moment, darkness swallows them whole. Then the camera pulls into a wide shot, shapes moving between the trees, too fast to see clearly, but close enough to feel. The voiceover cuts in again. The closer they come to truth, the closer death follows. Henry pulls Julia to her feet, and the two dash into the forest. Their breathing is heavy, the sound of pursuit growing louder behind them. Cracking branches, hurried footsteps, and whispers in a language they do not know. Julia turns back, her face pale in the dim moonlight, and hisses, "They don't want us to find her." The screen flashes to black again, then explodes with imagery. Henry swinging his sword in the dark, sparks flying as metal clashes. Julia's scream echoing through the trees, a shadowed figure gripping Claire's torn cloak in the darkness. The music cuts to silence, and a single sound fills the air. Claire's faint voice calling out, "Help me!" The screen stays black for a beat, holding the audience in silence before the storm returns, louder than before. The storm begins to fade, leaving only the low crackle of fire somewhere unseen. The screen opens on Henry and Julia, stumbling into the ruins of an old stone chapel hidden deep in the woods. The walls are broken, the roof half collapsed, and moss creeps across the carved stone. The silence here feels heavier than the storm outside, as though the air itself is holding its breath. A flicker of torchlight plays against the walls, casting dancing shadows across forgotten symbols etched into the stone. Julia runs her fingers along them, whispering, "This place, it's older than we are meant to know." Her voice trembles, not from fear, but from awe. Henry's eyes fall to the ground where drops of blood mark a trail across the broken floor. His hand tightens around the sword at his side. Slowly he follows the marks until they lead to a half-buried chest near the altar. With a grunt, he forces it open. Inside lies a bundle of fabric, torn but unmistakable. The gown Claire once wore. The camera lingers on the fabric, swaying slightly in the breeze that pushes through the cracks of the ruined walls. Julia kneels beside him, her voice breaking. "She's alive. She has to be." The music swells, low strings building with tension, layered with a haunting female voice humming faintly in the background. The sound is neither near nor far, almost as if it's seeping through the walls of time itself. Henry freezes. His breath grows shallow, and then faintly the echo of Claire's voice. "Henry." The lantern flickers as if answering her call. Julia's eyes widen. She whispers, "Did you hear that?" Henry turns sharply, his gaze cutting into the shadows at the far end of the chapel. For a moment, nothing moves. Then a figure appears. Only the outline of a woman, cloaked in darkness, standing where the moonlight falls through a shattered window. The screen cuts sharply to black before her face is revealed. The voiceover returns, soft but urgent. "Hope is dangerous, but it is all they have." The screen bursts with rapid flashes. Henry running through the chapel doors with Julia close behind. A hand, unmistakably Claire's, reaching through iron bars. Julia screaming her name into the void. The heartbeat sound returns, louder than before, pulsing with every cut. It stops suddenly, leaving only silence, before the faint whisper breaks through once more. "Find me, before it's too late." The music crashes back in with full force, promising both danger and salvation. The hunt for Claire is no longer a dream. It is real. It has begun. The screen ignites with a violent clash of steel against steel. Sparks explode into the darkness as Henry's sword meets the blade of a faceless attacker. The sound of the impact rattles through the air, echoing like thunder. Julia screams his name, her lantern swinging wildly as she struggles to fight off another shadowed figure with nothing but a torch. The music now pounds with rapid drums, the tempo racing like a heartbeat on the edge of panic. Quick cuts follow in a storm of chaos. Henry tackled to the ground, his sword skidding across stone. Julia pulling him back up, her eyes fierce despite the terror. Torches being hurled into the night, flames scattering across the ruins. A masked enemy slamming a gate shut behind them, cutting off their path. The voiceover pierces through the storm of sound. The closer they come to her, the more the darkness rises. The screen flashes to Claire's hand again, dirty, trembling, clutching the bars of a cage. Her voice, faint but desperate, echoes, "Henry! Julia!" The sound is distorted, carried on the wind as if through time itself. The music rises higher, violins screaming, and the montage accelerates. Henry's face streaked with blood, eyes burning with determination. Julia breaking into tears as she whispers, "I won't lose her. horses charging through a river under moonlight, a figure dragging Claire deeper into the shadows, the chapel collapsing in fire and smoke. Then silence. Everything cuts to black. A single drop of water echoes as it falls. From the darkness, Henry's voice. "No matter the cost, we will find her." The screen erupts once more with the final storm of images. Julia holding Claire's gown to her chest, sobbing but unbroken. A faceless enemy raising their blade high. Claire's eyes, for the first time, opening in the dark. A sudden explosion of light, blinding and all-consuming. The voiceover closes, low and commanding. "Time cannot break destiny. It only forges it stronger." The music slams to its final note as the title card bursts across the screen. The screen is silent. No music, no storm, no footsteps. Only the sound of breathing. Slow, heavy, uneven. The camera pans across the ruins left behind. Torches smoldering in the mud, broken swords scattered, and the faint trail of blood leading deeper into the shadows. A low hum begins to build. At first soft, almost like a lullaby. Then layered with whispers that overlap, too many voices to understand. Julia clutches her ears as if the sound itself cuts into her skull. Henry steadies her, his own face pale, but his eyes locked forward with burning focus. The camera shifts, and for the first time we see a door of ancient stone, sealed with rusted chains. Symbols glow faintly on its surface, as though alive. Henry reaches for it, and Julia grabs his wrist, whispering, "If you open this, there is no going back." He does not answer. Instead, he pulls free and presses his palm against the stone. The whispers cut off in an instant, leaving only silence. Then, Claire's voice. Clear, direct, desperate. "Henry, Julia, I'm here." The stone trembles. Dust falls. The chains rattle and snap one by one, each break echoing like a scream through the ruins. Julia gasps, her eyes flooding with tears as the door creaks open just enough to reveal a blinding light. Through the light, a shadow moves. A woman's figure, unmistakably Claire. Her hand reaches out, trembling, almost breaking through the veil of time itself. But just before Henry can touch her, the screen slams to black. The voiceover cuts in, deep and unyielding. Some doors should never be opened. The music roars back, louder than ever. Drums, violins, and a choir echoing with dread and hope. Rapid-fire flashes, Henry collapsing to his knees, screaming Claire's name. Julia dragged back by unseen hands, fighting to hold on. Claire's figure pulled away into the blinding light. The stone door sealing shut again with a thunderous slam. The sound cuts to silence once more. Only a single whisper remains, sharp and haunting, spoken directly into the audience's ear. "Find me, before it's too late." The screen fades to the final card. The screen fades in slowly. A single candle burns in the darkness, its flame bending under a cold draft. The sound of a distant clock begins to tick, slow and steady, every beat cutting through the silence. The camera draws closer to the flame, and with each tick, shadows grow taller on the wall until the candle finally blows out. Darkness swallows the frame. A voice rises, heavy with warning. "Time does not heal all wounds. Sometimes, it sharpens them." The screen bursts alive with a cascade of rapid cuts. Henry standing alone on a cliffside, the ocean roaring beneath him. Julia kneeling in the mud, clutching Claire's torn gown to her chest, her face streaked with tears. A faceless enemy striking steel against stone, sparks lighting up a hidden chamber. A pair of hands closing a book, the sound echoing like thunder, as if history itself is being sealed. The music returns, pulsing low and slow, like the rhythm of war drums in the distance. Henry lifts his head, his eyes burning not only with grief, but with rage. He speaks into the wind, his voice raw. "If they've taken her, they've already declared war." Julia stands behind him, her voice breaking but resolute. "Then we fight. Together." The montage spirals faster. Fire spreading across the ruins, arrows flying in the night, horses charging through fog, blades clashing in chaos. Amid the fury, One image stands still. Claire's shadow standing on the other side of a barred window, her hand pressed to the glass, her lips forming the words no one can hear. The voiceover returns, this time stronger, layered with both Henry and Julia's voices. Destiny isn't waiting. It's coming. The final shot lingers on Henry and Julia side by side, standing at the mouth of a dark valley. Behind them, the storm churns. Before them, endless shadows writhe. Henry grips his sword. Julia raises her lantern. Together, they step forward into the unknown. The screen slams to black one final time. A whisper, softer than ever but sharper than a blade, slips into the silence. Find me, or lose me forever. The title crashes across the screen with fire and steel. The screen opens with silence. No music, no storm, only the faint drip of water echoing in the dark. A single torch flickers to life, casting light on walls carved with ancient markings. The camera pushes closer, the sound of footsteps echoing, slow and deliberate. Henry and Julia stand at the edge of a stone passage, their faces illuminated by the trembling flame. Their eyes are tired, wounded, but filled with an unshaken resolve. Julia whispers, "This is where it ends, or where it truly begins." The torchlight shudders, and with it, the sound of Claire's voice ripples through the darkness, faint at first, then clearer. "Henry, Julia, I'm waiting." The screen flickers rapidly, images layered like fragments of memory. Claire's hand pressed against the bars, Henry raising his sword against unseen enemies, Julia's tears falling onto Claire's torn gown, a faceless figure stepping into the light, their blade dripping red. The heartbeat sound returns, faster now, louder, echoing in rhythm with the audience's pulse. The montage erupts, horses galloping across the highlands under a blood-red sky, flames consuming the ruins of the chapel, Henry screaming into the storm, his voice raw with rage, Julia collapsing but forcing herself to rise again, lantern blazing in her hand. The screen cuts to black, silence once more. Then, the final voiceover. Every choice has a cost, every love demands a sacrifice, and every destiny has its reckoning. A flash of white light fills the screen, and for the briefest moment, Claire's face is revealed. Eyes wide, lips parting as though to speak. The image vanishes before a single word escapes. The title card slams down with a thunderous crash. Outlander, Season 8, Episode 1 Trailer. The search ends. The reckoning begins. The music rises in one final wave, a blend of strings, drums, and haunting whispers, then cuts off like a blade. From the silence, a single whisper pierces the darkness. Claire's final call. Find me, before it's too late. The screen fades to black. End of trailer.